There it is. Welcome to the 21st episode of Renegade Thinkers Live, a show that promises to be long on marketing insights and short on overhyped buzzwords. We'll be drinking in the latest tactics and the coolest gin. Yep, this may be the only live marketing show that also features a gin tasting. This show is being live streamed via our friends at Restream. And if you want to drink along at home, today we're comparing two different gins from Orange County Distillery, a brand, and The Botanist Islay Dry Gin, a widely distributed super premium one. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, live from my home studio in New York City. With Google and Facebook both recording record ad revenues in Q2 2021, there are no signs that digital ad spending will slow down anytime soon. But if you dig into the numbers, you will also see an increase in CPMs as marketers compete for high quality inventory, which in turn is putting pressure on response rates. B2B marketers, many of whom had hoped that physical events would resume in Q4, have been forced to double down on digital, but are not enjoying the same yields that they had in 2021. These marketers are confronting a malaise we will call digital fatigue. Reported symptoms of digital fatigue include webinaritis, virtual event absentia, and Zoom gloom, among others. But since this show is all about solutions, not problems, we're here to talk about how savvy marketers are combating digital fatigue. And with that, let's bring on Shirley Macbeth, CMO of Forrester, star of episode 241 of Renegade Thinkers Unite. Hey, Shirley. Shirley, how are you?
I'm great. How are you, Drew?
I'm good. You know, it's a live show and you never know what might happen. So anyway, I decided to use my earbuds this time and they just don't want to stay in my ear. So anyway, I know that Forrester has used issued a number of reports of late that speak to the challenge I raised in the opening. They're not calling it digital fatigue. What are you all seeing on a general basis?
Well, I love the new vocabulary we're all dealing with, right? The itises and all the maladies of the new digital world that we're dealing with. But I'd say a couple of things. So Forrester researches this, looks at what B2B buyers and consumers are looking at. And I'd say just off the top, we are finding that people, yes, are fatigued of a number of things, but they aren't fatigued of all digital content. They're just able to be a lot more selective. There's a lot more people vying for and better content that's out there. So, you know, we obviously there is no choice. Things have to be digital right now or virtual, and that's not going away. It's actually going to continue in the long front. So marketers have to be flexible and creative to grab that mind share. And one thing I would also note that's really compounds this challenge for marketers is the number of touch points in a typical buyer's journey has greatly expanded. So from 2019, it would take 17 touches for a typical lead to close in most B2B organizations. That has gone up by 10 touches. So 27 touches to close a deal in a typical buyer's journey. And think of it, they're all need to be digital. That's a big challenge for us here today as marketers.
Oh my God, 27 touches. Now, on one hand, that probably reflects a growing increase of number of decision makers that are now in the process. It just reflects, in some sense, what I'll call the CFNO and the just delaying purchases, which may have happened in particularly in 2020 when nobody knew what things were going on. But on the flip side of this, as a marketer, I see that sort of as an opportunity in the sense that sales guys can't make 27 touches. And if they did, they would just really piss off the customer. So that opens the door. How many of those are you estimating are really marketing driven touches?
I would say a lot of them. And what we're finding is that, a touch could mean a lot of things. It's going to a website, trying out a tool. It's doing things that maybe you may not even think of that you're selling to somebody, right? And we're finding now that more and more buyers are taking advantage of these digital touch points. And in fact, the switch has flipped where it used to be more human interactions to close the deal versus virtual and, self-driven. And we would say from people doing more in the buyer's journey, those are all the more digital. So marketers have to find great ways to engage and add value along the way, rather than, like what you said, a salesperson can't and won't go out 27 times. It just doesn't make sense.
And as I'm thinking about it, I have all sorts of thoughts that are going on at the same time. But a lot of this is we've been trained consumers to buy ourselves whatever it is on, Amazon, obviously, but everything. And so we just take that same consumer behavior and we bring it to the purchase. But it's complicated when it gets to be an enterprise sale and there are 10 people involved. You can't necessarily do it on and there's demos, there's proof of concept or things. There's all sorts of complicated things in the world of enterprise. So it is hard to create. Everything can't be self-service, right?
Right. So the average number of people in what we call a buyer unit, you're right. There's never a single buyer, especially in these multi-year, multi-million-dollar deals that some of us face. It's a minimum of 4. 60% of deals have at least 4, and they're different types of it's purchasing. It's the CFO. It's sales, et cetera. So our challenge as marketers, of course, is to tailor content. We talk about it as, providing things that are handy, helpful, and now human. I think the human element, especially during this time, is really important to engage your buyers as people and meet them where they're at and understand what's driving their particular role in that buyer's journey, a procurement person versus, an engineer who needs different types of materials.
Handy, helpful, and human. So I'm a big fan of alliteration. My new book is full of it. And yes, I want to break those down because what we're really prescribing is a little bit of a shift here in terms of the way the marketer thinks about this digital stuff. So much of it, if you put it in this world of demand generation, you start to think about it as, I got to get that guy from the top of the funnel to the next level and so forth. And I'm just thinking about, do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Do you want to buy? Okay, let's close, right? Whereas handy, helpful, and human, none of those say sell, sell, sell. All of those say, what I'll call sell through service, is that you are doing something of value to your prospective buyers. Let's talk about, what does handy mean? What do you really mean there?
Well, useful content, useful in, whatever way makes your decision maker able to make that selection process more easily. And it's not, really the first pivot you have to think about is think from your buyer's point of view. Be customer centric, which is a big Forrester, mandate. You're not selling a product. You are addressing a customer need. And if you flip that pivot, first of all, you're thinking about what is handy, not from our point of view as what we're selling. It's what will advance and help that solve that business problem that a client is having. So that's, I think, number one is handy from the point of view of the client that you're trying to address.
Got it. All right. Well, we're going to circle back to all of this, but now I want to bring on Paul Stoddart, CMO of Epicor and star of episode 239 of Renegade Thinkers Unite. Hello, Paul.
Well, hello, you. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thank you. Now, we spoke a few months back and we discussed at length Epicore's brand transformation, which is a process that never ends. I'm curious, what's the latest with your marketing efforts, particularly in the area of demand generation and sort of this digital fatigue thing that I mentioned at the top of the show?
Yeah, what a great subject, by the way, and thanks for having me talk about it with you. You're right. Hey, the brand journey is an ongoing journey, and if you're always trying to raise the bar, and I think that's the important thing, then it's never going to end. So let me think about your question. I think the reality is digital fatigue. I don't know that there is digital fatigue. I'm going to be a little bit
Yay.
push back on that, because I kind of think back 3 or 4 years ago when all of a sudden there was Netflix and Hulu, and you get all of these streaming services. Would we say that people have got fatigued with the amount of streaming of great content? I don't think people have. I think the reality is people have become more discerning, and I think people have got more savvy, and therefore, and I think to the prior comments about having things which are really good and human and all of that good stuff. The reality is it behooves us to actually create way better engaging experiences, and if we do that, then I'm not sure that the fatigue has to be there. I think people will go where the great, not just the good, but the great is, which takes me to our journey. So, where are we on that whole demand gen, lead gen, and our brand? And the reality is, Drew, I know my perspective on this, and it's a cake, and it's all important. We're driving for the experience. It isn't one element. It's not just about intent data and enrichment, or conversational and AI and all of that. It's like they're enablers of the experience we're trying to deliver. So our brand's in market. It's performing really well. We've gone from a low market awareness to a high market awareness, and now it's about driving that familiarity, and people really understanding and getting the proof of what we do. And we use all of the expected channels, as you'd imagine, to be able to deliver that to our customers. But we keep coming to this end point, which is what's the experience we're trying to deliver, and how do we get to build a really meaningful relationship versus just transactions? So that's kind of the journey we're on, and it's going to be an ever-going journey, like we said.
Well, so I'm going to step back, and I agree with you that there will always be demand for great anything, right? But the problem is that most marketers didn't change the quality of the content. Some did, and those folks are cutting through. Everybody else is just, mainly it's about quantity, not quality. And they're just pushing stuff out. They've got a content calendar, and they're going to meet that content calendar. They're going to get stuff out there. And that's what I mean by digital fatigue. Your run-of-the-mill webinar, you're going to get fewer people to sign up. But if you bring a star to the webinar, more people will show up. But most, and so that's my point, is that the average that might have worked a year ago is not working. And a lot of marketers haven't responded. And so I guess the question is, from 2 years ago or 3 years ago, what, from your standpoint, are you seeing that you've done that's sort of, I guess, raised the bar for what you're doing?
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it, and I think that's it, right? Fatigue comes from just being fed up with something in many ways, or it not meeting a need. So I agree with you. We're as we always are, largely aligned. It is around the quality, and how do you raise the quality? Otherwise, you just blend out into the background. So for us, I mean, candidly, a lot of it's been about less is more. Actually creating higher quality, more engaging. To your point, there's a production value element to it as well. It's technology and tools and capabilities have allowed to do things very fast, but maybe not to the right quality. And certainly from a brand perspective, if you're trying to deliver on quality cues, what does your brand stand for? It'd be really easy to create things that actually don't stand to the brand test, if you like. So for us, our journey over the past, let's go for 18 months now, has been about, where do you scale back? It's kind of the go slow to go fast. Where do you scale back to actually, do things really well, which to your point will cut through and actually be, really meaningful for people, versus just hit that content calendar, which, becomes irrelevant very quickly.
So is there anything that you've done in the last 3 months or so that you sort of felt like that either performed better than you expected, or was an example of raising the bar?
Yeah, and it's pretty specific. I'll give it its name. We call it the Industry Insight Report. So we spend a lot of time doing research with our customers, but also with the wider marketplace as well. And for us, we were on a mission to understand where people are on their journey to cloud and what cloud means to them. And for us, that's been, how do you then get the results of that content and give actionable insight so it's meaningful to both your customers, but also prospects in the future as well? So, delivering that in, a different set of mechanisms globally. Again, how do you make it globally relevant, but also very specific to each market? And that's been an exercise on, recognizing that you need to have different levels of content delivered in different mechanisms for people to engage with in different ways. We've got a really nice, what I would call a cut down version of the full report on our website. We work with a brilliant partner, Seros. They allow you to create brilliantly engaging content. And then you obviously can get access to the full report, all the data, and it be, honed to you as an individual as well. So again, this is an exercise of, we want to go really deep on one subject, but apply the learnings from it to, many different audiences. And that's the goal for me is, do something really meaningful. Don't just, create lots of stuff.
Yeah. Proprietary research does it again. Okay. And what was the name of that company that you were working with?
Oh, Seros. They're wonderful.
Okay. All right. Perfect. We'll be back to you. Now let's welcome Amanda Carty, CMO of Diligence. Hello, Amanda.
Hey, Drew. How are you?
Hi.
Thanks for having me.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great.
So let's talk about Diligence brand transformation. You've gone through, I think, some acquisitions and evolved platform. You've been busy this summer. I know it.
Yeah, busy it's a great word to describe it. Diligent has been very acquisitive. Since I've been here close to 5 years, we've had over 24 acquisitions. And so that brings a lot of challenges around the brand, right? With all the goal of it to get behind the big Diligent brand and market. But with those acquisitions, our breadth and depth grew drastically. And we really had to kind of redefine who we were and make sure people understood everything that we had to offer. So in 2019, we launched our new category, Modern Governance, which really broke ground for us. And the journey continues for us. This past year, we had 3 very large and transformative, I would say, acquisitions that really expanded our category and our growth. Our company changed overnight. And so we're reworking our story and getting enhancing our brand and market now. It's been a while.
I know it's mind-boggling to think about 24. I mean, it's like every time you get your positioning right and you think you have the language right, there's another acquisition and it changed your offering. I just can't imagine. You have obviously are an individual with low blood pressure and the ability to just sort of roll with a lot of newness all the time. So I admire that. And I'm trying now, if we bring that back to this whole notion of digital fatigue, you have this sort of really interesting challenge, which is every time you're about to put some content in the market, and you talked about modern governance, which is a new category. If we talk about a new category, we need a lot of content to sell that, to just build awareness of it. What role has content played, and have you found anything that's sort of working today for you, that's sort of fighting digital fatigue?
Yeah, so I would say we do a lot of thought leadership content. We push a lot of content out there. We have, I think, definitely started to raise the bar with our content. Most recently, I think it's timely when we talk about upping the game and having to get more creative in how you reach your audience. We just launched a big content partnership with Fortune this week. We launched the Modern Board, which is a digital experience for directors and executives, and really starting to help enhance the conversation between the board and the C-level executives and have more transparency and flowing of dialogue. But we had to really try to think of, okay, how do we up the game? How do we get to the C-level and then engage with the board level? And so we just launched that, which we're super excited. It has a great response so far, but also we leverage the product and making sure we're serving up timely content within the product and getting in front of the audience as they're using our technology as well. And we've found that very helpful.
So just in case folks don't know, because if you're not in a board or in a governance position, you might know, but not know this, but Diligent is sort of a management software system platform for managing governance and boards and interactions. I want to go back to the Fortune thing, because this came up a lot in CMO huddles as we talk about raising the bar. One of the things that brands have been doing is partnering with well-known media properties. Your match with Fortune is kind of genius, given the fact that they are known as the Fortune 500. They are known as the public company place. So, but talk a little bit about what the partnership is in terms of the kind of content that's coming out of that.
Yeah, so there is a need for more transparency between, as I mentioned, what happens at the C-level and the board. One example would be there's a lot of commitments that are being made by organizations around ESG. A lot of purpose commitments being made out there, how organizations are leading with purpose. And what our technology does, it allows organizations to have the right insights that sparks better decision making, which allows companies to be more accountable and purpose-led. And so this content that we're putting out there is kind of the how do organizations measure these commitments? How does a chief risk officer talk to the chairman of the board, and how do they raise issues proactively and have meaningful conversation, except getting called into the boardroom when something bad happens? So it's breaking down those barriers, the content that we're putting out there, and just allowing for more transparent conversations to happen, because you can't have that wall in the board meeting behind closed doors all the time. There needs to be more transparency into the organization. So the content is coming in the form of this new digital hub. We have newsletters going out. We're doing C-level events with board directors. And we have some other exciting surprises planned with them as well that will be coming early next year.
More coming. Now, just because there's a chance my 95-year-old dad might be watching the show, he will say, what's ESG? So
environmental, social, and governance.
There you go. Environmental, social, and governance. It is not the same as triple bottom line, but it speaks to the notion of building environment into environmental measurement. Okay, we're going to open it up to the whole group now. And we've been talking a lot in CMO huddles about increasing engagement for the folks that do show up at events. And, we just heard Amanda talking about, you were going to talk about C-level events. I'm curious, let's talk a little bit about what you were trying in these, we'll call them micro events. And I have we've heard a lot in huddles about them, but I'm just curious. And Amanda, you mentioned it already. So what does a C-level event look like on a virtual basis?
Yeah, it's small, it's intimate, Chatham House rules. It is allowing to have hard conversations had and with trusted partners. And so we have found them to be very helpful, but you have to keep them small and intimate.
Small, and is that like under 15, under 10?
Oh yeah. So we'll have one moderator and probably 6 to 7 attendees.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because a lot of the others, and Shirley, Paul, either of you sort of done this sort of, we'll call them micro event approach?
We've done it actually at some of our what had been traditional larger events. We were one of the first to pivot to virtual, and did a lot of things differently, including sort of some micro events within that targeted towards executive level. And I'd say Amanda is absolutely right. The value that you can provide by bringing together a small group of or related type of people, whether it's industries or personas, et cetera, to have a discussion that's valuable to them. And we've been leveraging that as well.
It's funny because in the huddles, it was interesting last week, it was one CMO talked about how these were really good for sort of top of the funnel, getting folks in, and they were, doing wine and cheese. And he mentioned where he got the cheese from, and for about 10 to 15 people. And then another CMO talked about how they were really good for deal acceleration, where they'd have 10 prospects that were very far down the pipeline and two customers, no selling at all. Anyway, I think it's fascinating that this has become a really, and the value, even those, the bar is getting higher. It's got to be better cheese. It's got to be better wine. It's got to be a better speaker. Paul, have you tried this approach?
Yeah, similar in different ways. So, we absolutely think about, the quorum of bringing people together and letting them have a discussion. There's nothing more powerful than having one person talk about their experiences, even if some of the conversations are challenging. That's fine too. And I agree. Hey, the small events tend to work well, and I think we're choosing good cheese. Certainly, it looks like it by the cost. It looks like good cheese. Candidly though, we're also running big events still, and whether that be digital, and I don't know whether we're privileged or not, but we have customers that actually still really care about face-to-face, and we've lent in where they want us to, very cautiously, following everything we can. But there's the blend, and I think we gotta go where the customer wants us to be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind there's pent-up demand for physical events. And there has been conversations about doing these small events in person outside and trying to do them in safe environments. But again, I think in the last month, there's been a lot of pullback in the physical events. So I don't think we're necessarily any of us are saying, oh, we can rely on that for the fourth quarter of 2021. Any of you disagree with that? You've got a large physical event you're going to rely on to get prospects in the door?
Well, I mean, we have one. So again, our timing was maybe sublime, because you're absolutely right. Then it went a little bit the other way. And you're right, there was pent-up demand, no question about it. And I would say the level of conversations was a categoric all-time high. People that were there wanted to be there. And, I think when it comes back, it's going to, be more meaningful than it ever has been in the past. But you're right, you have to follow the times and what's happening. And, we managed to hit a window, which was great. But it does tell us you got to plan for it. We've got to plan for, when it can happen.
And so I think...
Go ahead, Shirley.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you think about those physical events, so we're certainly not planning for a lot of those now, but, when we think about 2022 and hopeful as we all are, our physical events are going to look very different. And I think they're going to be better, right? Because of the virtual experience. So I would say all our future planning, every physical event has a rich virtual component where it wouldn't have had that before. So you think of all the great things that we've learned from this time won't go away. And I think the landscape of what events look like, it's going to be really exciting. So combining the benefits of physical with, the virtual, the pre-event things that you do, the content being available and live streamed for much longer. So it's not just that moment in time and you're done. It's a rich multi-month experience.
Completely agree.
Yeah. And I think that notion of create one big thing and then use it for many months, whether it's a research project like Paul talked about, or Shirley, your large events and spreading out, it clearly is it. And then the notion of hybrid, there's no doubt. Okay, I'm going to take if you don't mind, I'm going to just do a little plug on CMO Huddles, which we launched in 2020. CMO Huddles is an invitation-only subscription service that brings together an elite group of CMOs to share, care, and dare each other to greatness. Now, one CMO described Huddles as timely conversations with smart peers in a trusted environment, while another called it a cross between an expert workshop and a therapy session. If you're a B2B CMO and you can share and care with the best of them, visit cmohuddles.com or send me an email and see if you qualify for a guest pass. Okay, Shirley, Paul, Amy, anything you want to add on CMO Huddles? Now's your chance.
I think it speaks to the handy, helpful human we've been talking about. People, it's a great way to have these conversations with your peers. And I've met some new folks through Drew and through this community, and we're all trying to experiment and try new things. And it's a great way to meet other folks.
Love it.
Yeah, I would add in onto it. It gives you definitely a fresh perspective on some challenges you may be going through. Someone who's has been there and done it can bring some real life stories to what you're trying to bring to life yourself. And it's always good to have a fresh pair of eyes on a challenge you're trying to overcome, for sure. I found it very helpful.
I love it.
Yeah, and I'll cap it off then. So I mean, I agree. If you're a learner, not a knower, and you want to get an experience every time, it's fantastic. I mean, even just here learning about Diligent, I'm like, hey, that feels like something we should be looking at. So every time you learn something new.
I love it. Okay. Well, thank you all for that. Well, this is a perfect time. We've got some recorded comments from other huddlers. We're going to play that while we go and grab our gin and our chilled glasses, if you happen to remember that. And we'll be back in a minute for our amazing gin tasting. So stay with us.
If you're the CMO, you're sort of at the top of the marketing heap, and you need other folks to grow and develop and challenge and hear ideas. So to me, it's sharpening the saw.
Part of the service that you provide is that concierge service, and connect one-to-one when you know that there's something that one of us is concerned about or has questions about.
It's a great place to have a sounding board to say, hey, have you used this technology and how has it worked, or what are the things to think about when you deploy it?
Like, I have this problem. I know these 4 softwares or tools that fix it. Sort of diligence conversation that can happen in 15 minutes would have taken me hours otherwise.
Really appreciate the diversity of thought.
Value of this sort of getting to know people who are not necessarily in your daily orbit.
First of all, I learn something every single time. Can't make it. You do this incredible recap so that you can scan through with all these resources is huge. The Slack channel, you've got a question, you post it in the Slack channel, and then people can respond and send suggestions. It's really as ingrained or pervasive as you want it to be.
Jackie has constantly reminded me that we need a call to action on everything we do. So if you are a CMO that can share and care and dare with the best of them, visit CMOHuddles.com. How's that for a call to action, Jackie? All righty, we're back. And so each of our contestants today have 2 bottles in front of them. Now, what they didn't get to see is this is the bottle for Orange County Distillery. I got this at a farmer's market in New York City, and I talked to the distiller himself. He makes like 3 different things. I've never had a chance to taste it, but you 3 are probably among the only folks in your region who have tasted this gin. Why don't we start with that one? Let's just give it a sniff. Wow, it's got some strong aroma to it.
Going.
I'm double fisting here. I'm just comparing.
Oh, you're comparing already. Well, I wanted to get some
I'm
comments
smelling, not sipping. Yeah.
Well, on the Orange County, it is definitely it's funny. I was reading a review in the New York Times of their top favorite gins, and they talked about how some are very botanical forward and they give you lots of different flavors at the same time. That's what this one does, right? I don't know. What do you think? What do you taste? It does pack a punch, but it's not overpowering in my mind. It's not like you feel like it's smoother than just like, if you were just drinking vodka straight. I get a lot of the Angelica root, but we have to bring on Nicole, our botanical expert, because there's a botanical in here called Staghorn Sumac, and I have no idea what that is. So Nicole, what is Staghorn Sumac?
I recommend that everyone goes and Google this after this call because it looks very interesting. It's actually very beautiful if you look at these plants. But Staghorn Sumac is it's a member of the cashew family, and it's one of the largest North American sumac tree. And it is particularly noted for the reddish brown hairs that covers the young blacklesh in the same way that velvet covers the horns of a stag, hence the common name. And a fun fact is that Native Americans used to make lemonade-like drinks from the crushed fruits of this plant.
There you go. Staghorn Sumac. Who knew? Thank you, Nicole.
Wow.
Hi.
Okay. Let's give a taste of the botanist. And by the way, I gotta give them props. I mean, the bottle with these botanicals It looks like they're written in their sort of original Latin format. Triforulum repens. Anyway, let's see what we think of the botanist in comparison.
I'm biased as a Pacific Northwestian. The botanist has been, in our cabinet for a while, and I'm a big fan. It's quite florally, but I love it.
Yeah, it too. I mean, this is one of the striking things about it. It's got 22 botanicals in it, which sort of is crazy when you think about it. So it's so complex. It's hard to sort through. I don't know what you taste here. Do any of the botanicals stand out to you, ladies?
I mean, the floral word works really good. Breaking it down from there, I'm not sure. It's a lot. It's very complex. Yeah.
So, Paul, I'm imagining this makes a mean martini.
It makes a mean most things. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think the thing for me with the botanist compared to most other gins, and maybe this is a bit unfair, I think the thing which is true with botanist is depending what you mix it with really makes it or kind of like, can not make it. So, a really good tonic, whether it be a fever tree or something like that. And then it's all about, what are you putting in? And, we like to actually put some rosemary with it. We've tried lime, we've done lemon, we kind of gone through different things. We came to a favorite, which was a slice of orange, which is kind of, abstract as well. But, it's about trying the different garnishes, I think. And kind of like, it's versatile. It's different people, different tastes.
It's so funny that you go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm a big fan of the orange with the gin. Yes.
And we had the folks from Drumshambo on the show with us a couple of weeks ago, live from Ireland, and they talked about putting a grapefruit slice to finish their G&Ts, which I thought that's genius. So it's the same concept. Okay. So Paul, you're sticking with the botanist as a favorite. Shirley, Amanda, you won't hurt anybody's feelings if you pick one. You got a favorite of these two?
I like the distillery one, the first one we had. That one was so smooth. I liked it. Yeah.
I like that one too. I mean, I think they're both great for different reasons, but there's something a little different about that one. I like that.
Tasting them back to back like I just did, which is going to make the last part of the show a lot more interesting. I would say the Orange County Distillery Gin just absolutely smothers the other one. It really does. And it's interesting. And I think it's just a little bit bolder kind of taste. Anyway, that was fun. Thank you for that. Thank you, botanist. By the way, one other thing about botanist that I think is kind of cool. It's made on Islay, which is an island in Scotland. And all the botanicals are foraged from Scotland. So props to that. Okay, we are back to the primary topic at hand, which is fighting digital fatigue. So, Amanda, I think I noticed that you all had a virtual summit in September.
We do. We have a 2-day Modern Governance Summit. It's a global event on the 14th and 15th. And we are not seeing digital fatigue with this. We have right now, we're still a few weeks out and have over 5,000 people registered for the event around the globe. But trying, again, back to raising the bar, we have brought in a stellar lineup of speakers. We have Alan Murray, Sally Sussman, Dimbiza Moya. So we have a really stellar lineup of speakers that raising the bar there and making the content. The sessions are 20 to 25 minutes, short, impactful sessions, on demand as well. So if you can't attend live, you can on demand. And also putting in to keep people engaged throughout. We're doing, gamification. We have contests going with some cool prizes. Hopefully that will keep them engaged and coming back and engaging with the content after the event. But we are gearing up for a big one in a couple of weeks.
5,000 attendees. And what do you hope will be sort of how many people will show up out of that? I mean, I've seen all sorts of numbers.
Yeah, we actually have a target of 10,000 registrants. And so hopefully we will have the 5,000 actually attend or engage with us over the 2 days.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And is there going to be anything sort of live and chatty that some participants, I mean, because if that were to happen, you'd need a lot of people watching the
Yes,
streams.
we do. So we have team members assigned to be doing live chat during the sessions, doing Q&A. And so hopefully that we'll be good with that.
Well, it's so first of all, high quality, shorter segments is something that, that was a big issue. One of in a huddle last week, someone talked about like 7-minute sprints and thinking about the content in that way. Paul, Shirley, do you have longer virtual events on the horizon?
Yeah, we do, and I think it's just probably a product of the people we're dealing with, and what we're trying to cover. So you can't cover an in-depth overview of a product and how to solve a business value problem in 7 minutes per se, or maybe you could, but I think the audience is expecting to be more conversational, and it's set up that way. But I think there's a good rule. We look at TED Talks, and the reality is a shorter piece of content, but again, super high quality and really well thought through. A brilliant format.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a good model, and what you see there is it's like one thought at it. It's one thought, and it's really just reinforced and told with really good stories. And what it sort of goes back to human and helpful, but there's an entertainment value here that we really haven't talked about. I mean, I think Amanda addressed it a little bit by just saying a bunch of names that have potentially to be they are authorities. What I have no way of knowing is, are these world-class speakers? They're certainly authorities, right? Are you going to get the entertainment value out of them? And I'm curious, I'm going to push back on that, just say, how are you going to control the quality of those speakers, even though they're well known?
Yeah, so we do a lot of prep sessions with them. We're actually recording this week, since everything is on demand. We are going through our recordings. There's a lot of prep that goes in and a lot of takes that go with it. And we also have hired a speaking coach that we bring along the way with us. And so this person has worked with top speakers around the globe and executives as well. And so he is very helpful, and it's not Diligent giving the speaker feedback, it's a third party. So it makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, and they take the advice, and he knows how to make. He ran shows also, so he has entertainment in his background. So it's very helpful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really smart idea. If you are using outside speakers that are well known in the industry, but may or may not be world-class speakers, getting a third-party coach to be the bad guy, if you will, not a bad guy, is actually trying to help them.
Yeah.
Because that's really uncomfortable for you as a producer, particularly if they're clients or you're paying them. So that's a big tip on its own. And again, what we're talking about here is you've got to raise the bar. You might have been able to in a physical event. You brought everybody together. You could get away with the CEO speaking for 15 or 20 and not being that good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Everybody's there. Where are they going to go? They're waiting for their cocktail at 5 o'clock. They're not going to leave. In virtual events, we know people are going to leave because they're looking at their email and their Slack channel. And so that's so interesting. And Shirley, you had talked about rethinking events, and I still think it comes back to the basic quality of the content to begin with, right? That has to, and the assumption with Forrester is that it's going to be good. You got great research behind it. You're not making stuff up.
No, absolutely. I mean, content is king still, and it's got to be the quality of the content. But I love the feedback and the advice around making that super engaging, getting out, third-party speakers. And I think the beauty of a lot of this content is that we can record it ahead of time, like we were talking about, and you can edit and you can coach. And, I don't know, I'm sure we all have CMOs have gotten to an event and half the battle is just getting your team there. And you're like, oh my God, they got to present tomorrow, with the week before or whatever of deadlines of forced pre-recording. That's up the quality quite a bit. So I think that's of the benefit of everyone. And Drew, to your point around, where else are they going to go when they're at a physical event? You're thinking about the long term. Suddenly your events become assets that live, 6 months, 12 months, and people are, if you continue to use those as assets, those recordings from those sessions, they become valuable content that's not a moment in time. It's something that lasts much longer. So quality is definitely going up as a result.
It's so interesting. And I hadn't really thought of it this way, but I've been to any number of enormous conferences, IBM or Adobe or Pega. And I know those CEOs have spent a week plus perfecting. And they're, I don't want to say they are often really, really good. Everything is just, and I'm wondering, because they know they were live and they were going to be right. I'm wondering, is it harder now with the virtual portion of it, where they're in a studio, to get them as geared up and practice as much?
I find the opposite. I don't know. I would say for our CEO in particular, he's great live as well, but we've now even used some cool teleprompter stuff. He doesn't need it, but just to have that reinforcement of content has made it all the better. So he's like, why didn't we record everything before? Like, he's such a fan now of, for earnings and for everything else. I think it's actually better.
Well, there is that term, you can fix it in post. So
exactly.
The power of editing versus the liveness of it. But there is something, we all know there's something missing. There's that interactive. And I think about it from the other way. Like, I was asked to do a keynote today, and I said, I don't necessarily want to talk to nobody, right? You don't have that audience interaction. And so I find that so difficult. And so I wonder how these speakers are managing, because you love the audience and the feedback and so forth. And what are you doing, if anything? And I know I'm sort of pushing this a little bit, to sort of replicate that for the speakers so they have a sense of interaction. Can you do anything when you're pre-recording?
It's hard.
It's a great question, Drew. I'm at a loss, to be honest with you. I'd say I hadn't really thought that through, and it's a really good point, because I'm a little bit like Shirley. Our CEO is great, and with the teleprompter, all of that, it really helps, and he's polished. But you do get an energy when you're around people, and just that reaction. It gives them a little bit of swagger, which is otherwise a little bit hard to recreate. I kind of wonder, do we need to create a virtual environment for him to be looking in the whites of people's eyes or something? It's a great question. I'm going to dwell on that one.
Yeah, and I feel like there ought to be some software out there that could probably provide that sort of artificial live feed. Great point. You're awesome. You're right. Or something. Or laugh at the joke, because some of us who actually use humor, there's nothing worse than, it's like where you're putting a joke out there and nobody laughs. So you sort of lose the confidence that you would get from it. Anyway, I'm not going to dwell on that. I'm going to ask, what would Ben Franklin say? And I did some homework on this, as I always do before the show, thinking about this. And what we're talking a lot about is this world of transformation. Of course, Ben had something to say. He said, can anything be constant in a world which is eternally changing? He said this in about the 1740s. So I think he anticipated a world that was always eternally changing. And and marketers we're used to dealing with eternal change. This is just such an interesting thing because there's so much in flux. So, we've been talking a lot about now big events. We've talked about micro events. I'm wondering now, if we get back to this notion of digital fatigue, and Paul, you're right, some things are working and some things aren't. I'm wondering if we stick with this, how much pressure are you putting on yourself to challenge you and your team to change the way you're doing these kinds of, we'll just call it digital interactions?
Yeah, our team is challenged every day, either coming from me, coming from our CEO. But but I think it comes down to two things. One, maybe it's a little bit of my Disney experience background, but it is also, I focus on the experience, but the person you're going after is human, right? And so you have to remember who your audience is. They're human beings. Yes, they have a job, but they're also human, dealing with a lot in the world as well. So if you're leading with empathy and compassion in your experiences, I think that will go a long way.
There's that human word again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's talk about this in the context. So one of the challenges is I've really gotten good at ignoring digital ads. I've got, with Microsoft Office, you've sort of got the focus and the other, and I often don't get to my other inbox. I'm wondering what you all are doing. So again, that's another form of digital fatigue. It's just like another email, another LinkedIn connection, another thing. What are you doing in terms of employees and or customers to help you sort of market these virtual events? Shirley, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think we've always focused on, our brand ambassadors are really our employees. And when you think of the power of, LinkedIn and all the connections, the multiplicity of connections that we all have in either our personal or professional lives, we, make it very easy for our employees to share and promote our events and our content and everything. So we have, and I'm sure many of you do, an employee advocacy program at work to drive content and expand your views in that way.
And that pre-existed digital fatigue, but I'm imagining it's as important or more important than ever, because we trust our friends.
Yep.
We look for our friends to give us information that's important. Paul, Amanda, you doing anything with employees to help support this? Amanda, in particular, you've got to get from 5,000 to 10,000. We got to get that army of advocates out there.
Yeah, I would echo Shirley's comments. We leverage the employee base, and we have technology that helps them push out social posts to help spread the word. We craft emails for them. We write scripts for the SDRs to call out on, but we definitely leverage the employees around the globe.
And
yeah,
Paul?
I'd be mirroring again. So, and Drew, we talked about this in our session. For me, brand is internally focused, externally felt. So, you start within and it should permeate on the outside. But adding to that, I heard something really interesting the other day, and it's something that we're pausing for thought on. And that is your next demand gen channel really is your support channel. So how do you use support most effectively? How do you take things which were considered maybe only to customer in the past, but actually bring it forward into the buying cycle and to your prospective clients as well? So there's something there for me, which is around how does support play its part, because people are looking to engage with support. It's not something that gets done to them.
Your next demand gen channel is your support channel, as in we're getting real-time feedback from our customers. Mm-hmm. They're giving you something because they need support, which means they're not being able to do it on their own. This is an opportunity to not only engage, but upsell, cross-sell, refer, and it's a moment of interaction that is so missing. It's sort of ironic,
truly is.
Right?
I mean, you're truly engaged at that point, but also how do you bring it more up front? And in some B2B environments, all of that stuff's behind a firewall. You have to sign in for your customer service, those sorts of experiences. How do you bring that more forward? How do you maybe expose some of the truth of what's going on? Bring that right up front so that other people can learn from others' experience and feel maybe more of a trusted environment. That's I think where it's kind of probably going and creates support for coming into demand at the same time.
We do every year.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. We do every year.
Sorry.
We've put out a challenge for executives to do what we call a CX reality day. So customer experience reality day, live in your customer's shoes. And I think it's for the day, go out, try to find something on the website, try to log a service ticket, try to, sign up for an event, whatever it is. And I think, where the rubber meets the road is how does your brand promise actually come across in that moment? And we've done it for several years running for ourselves. themselves. It's actually driven some new product enhancements as a result. And it helps you really think about, that experience of your buyer, your customer needs to be what you think it is. And often it may not be.
CX Reality Day.
Cool.
It is really very cool. I can see Amanda and Paul thinking, okay, we can do that. We can do that. That is, and I'm just, Shirley, as you're talking about it, are there any finer points to what that means? I mean, what does, how does it, I mean, did you give them a playbook for that? I mean, how do you implement CX Reality Day?
We actually we have some blogs on it on our Forrester website, but the idea is you literally assign, get in the morning with your executive team and give them a task. And it's probably not something they own, right? So, you might have the IT person go, sign up for an event, or you might have the marketer, whatever it is. But we made a list of common use cases that we should be able to solve really equal, and we set up accounts that were not, to try to, so nobody knew that this was happening, this sort of secret shopper, if you will. And it gets you that feedback of walking in your customer's shoes.
Walk in those shoes. Okay. Once again, we are talking about being human and being helpful. All right. We're getting to the end here, and I'm wondering if when we'll start with you, Paul, some final words of wisdom for the CMOs in the audience in their efforts to fight digital fatigue.
I think we've heard it all the way through, and I kind of started. For me, it's all about the quality and raising the bar, and I'm going to mirror that with I think it's okay to go slow to go fast. I think it's okay to be a fast follower. You don't have to be on the bleeding edge all the time. See what works and just do it really, really well.
Do it well. Quality trumps quantity every single time, and even more so right now. Love that. Okay, Amanda, what's your sort of summary here?
Yeah, unique experiences that resonate with your customers. Raise the bar with.
And how do you sort of figure out what's unique here? Unique to your category, or unique just out there?
I would say unique to your persona. How can you make them better personally? Think about that personal development, that personal growth, and you have to get creative with those creative experiences. Make magical experiences.
Magical experiences. We are all working for Disney, I guess, is what you're really saying. Yeah, we just didn't know it yet, but I guess we will be. I guess it's Disney or Amazon. Okay. All right, Shirley.
Well, I'd say first and foremost, start with your customer's need. You're solving a problem that they have. Orient yourself and, be a customer obsessed and view it through the lens of your audience, rather than starting with, hey, I've got a product to sell you. That doesn't work. And the content, people can be a lot more selective with choosing the right digital content. But if it's oriented to their needs, they're gonna find that valuable.
And I believe every word, and you're preaching to the choir, but I hear the CMO say, yeah, but that's not going to help me make quota next month. I've got to fill pipeline. So my sales guys my BDRs and I need 3 times pipeline. And how does that, starting with a customer, end up translating into content that drives business?
It's easy. It's speaking in their language. So it's resonating and tying into talking in their language, understanding what's driving them. You are, after all, solving a business need that they have. So if you and we took that pivot about 1.5 years ago, it works. It really does. And so you're really honing and focusing and able to engage the right keywords, the right content to meet the buyer where they are.
I love it. Okay. And yes, and we talked a lot about that on the show, and so be sure to listen to that episode because it really does get into the fact that if you follow this methodology, it really works. Okay, thank you, Shirley, Paul, Amanda. You're all great sports and now gin lovers. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. Please join us in 2 weeks when we'll be talking about intoxicating content marketing with Jamie Geyer, Suzanne Reed, and Heidi Bullock. Cue the music. Renegade Thinkers Live is produced by Melissa Caffrey. Our botanical expert is Nicole Hernandez. For show notes and past episodes, please visit renegade.com, home of quite possibly the savviest marketing boutique in New York City. I'm your host, Drew Neiser, and until next time, keep those Renegade thinking caps on and strong.